All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garrett Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV and the producer of All Indiana Politics. Congressman Jim Banks' decision to vacate his seat and run for the Senate touched off a scramble in Northeast Indiana. 3 candidates are running for his seat this fall: Republican Marlin Stutzman, Democrat Kiley Adolph, and Libertarian Jarrad Lancaster. We invited all 3 candidates to appear on All Indiana Politics. Stutzman's campaign did not respond to multiple requests for an interview, but Adolph and Lancaster did. My colleague Phil Sanchez sat down with Adolph to talk about her run for office.
Kiley Adolph, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Right out of the gate, why do you want to do this, Kiley?
You know, my why for running is simple, and that's people. And I've really made it my life's work to serve people and empower communities. So I wanted to take that same commitment to people and communities to this space, which we need it now here more than ever.
For our viewers who aren't familiar with your background, tell us a little bit about Kiley Adolph.
Sure. I am a granddaughter of a farmer and a factory worker, the daughter of a state trooper and a secretary. I'm a proud daughter of Steuben County, so up in Northeast Indiana. Bearing witness to service and sacrifice and the value of community really propelled me to pursue a career focused on those things. So I started my career teaching in the inner city. From there, I went to become a vice president of a national nonprofit. I've also had the honor and opportunity of being a professor, where I was able to teach leaders from all over the world, leaders in nonprofit and for-profit, leaders in law enforcement and government, and leaders in the military. So I've always held this life, made it my life's work to serve people and empower communities.
What are some of the issues most important to you?
So it's been interesting traveling around the district, and there are some common themes that continue to come up when we talk with voters. You know, we've been everywhere from Fremont to Fort Wayne, Huntington to Hartford City. So our district is in Northeast Indiana, and some of those common themes, those common issues are healthcare, the economy, education, and rights. And when people are talking about healthcare, they're talking about access and affordability to care. When people are talking about the economy, they're talking about access to good jobs, being able to earn a living wage and afford housing. When people are talking about education, they're talking about wanting their child to have a high quality public education. And when we're sitting down with people and they're bringing up rights, they're talking about labor and economic equity, and they're also talking reproductive rights and the importance of addressing that this election year.
When you looked at the landscape of all that is going on in Indiana, what made you want to jump into and try to land this seat?
You know, I don't necessarily think it's one thing. I think it's a lot of things that came together to make me say, okay, let's jump in and let's do this and let's continue to serve people. Like I mentioned, you know, the entirety of my career has really been focused on that, just in different spaces and places, serving people and empowering communities. And a lot of it just came down to having those conversations at the kitchen table and realizing the issues that are affecting both our lives, our families' lives, and our neighbors' lives. And it was time for someone to step up and give that a voice. So that's really what led me to this space.
Specifically in this district, what do you think needs to change?
Well, first and foremost, the district needs a representative who actually shows up for them and who actually sits down and listens to the issues that are affecting them and their lives and their communities. I think first and foremost, we have to have a representative who is willing to do the work of and for the people. And then we have to start tackling those issues that are affecting everyday lives and stop politicizing the issues and actually sit down and problem solve and get to the root of these issues, whether that's access and affordability of care, whether that's access to housing, whether that's, you know, the economy or education or rights. We have to sit down, regardless of political ideology, and start having these conversations and start having this dialogue about the issues that are impacting lives and start to create solutions to address those issues.
When you talk to voters, specifically in this district, what do they tell you? What do they want to see?
A multitude of things, yeah. Right? It's been interesting the number of places that we've been where people have said thank you. Thank you for showing up, because no one has in years. So I think first and foremost, if you embark on a journey like this, you have to be willing to show up for people and to serve people. So I think they want to see more of the people who are in government to actually show up and have conversations with them, and to remind them that they're there to serve them. This is what this is about. This is the beauty of living in a democracy, is we can elect officials who can serve us and who can empower us and who can make our communities better. So more than anything, they want someone to show up. And they also want someone to understand the issues that are affecting their everyday lives. You know, I grew up in a working middle class family, and we understood what it meant to struggle, and we understood what it meant to succeed. So having someone who understands those issues that are affecting lives, whether it's, you know, affordability and accessibility in the different aspects of our lives and society.
Do you think Jim Banks dropped the ball there?
I think there's room for improvement, for sure. And that's based on feedback from the voters, where they're saying thank you for showing up because no one else has.
Yeah. So that being said, you know, he was pretty successful when it came to election time. So how do you plan to fight that? Obviously, he's not running, but you're up against an establishment in this district. So how do you plan to fight that?
Well, first and foremost, we have to get people to turn out. We have to get people voting. We're 50th in voter turnout in the United States. So that's a big issue in and of itself. And so much of that is about voter access and information, and just sharing with them the issues at hand, sharing with them who's on the ballot, sharing with them, you know, here's where you can vote, here are the times in which you can vote. So first and foremost, we have to get people to the polls. And then also sitting down and having these conversations with people, again, regardless of political ideology, and just say, you know, unfortunately, as soon as you say I'm a Republican or a Democrat, there's this automatic divisiveness. But at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our communities. So the more we can sit down and build a bigger table and say everyone is welcome, let's have those conversations. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's beautiful and that's okay, because that's part of living in a democracy. But at least let's start having that dialogue and having those conversations. So I think it has to begin there. It has to say, everyone, let's come to the table and have these conversations, regardless of where you are politically. And then we have to get people to turn out to vote. We're 50th in voter turnout, so we have a voter apathy problem in Indiana. So being able to address that is going to be key for all races throughout the state.
Why do you think that is, voter turnout? Why do you think it's so low?
It's a great question. So based upon the feedback we've received, a lot of people feel like because we've had this one party majority, supermajority in our state for so long, they feel like maybe their voice doesn't matter or their vote doesn't count. So reminding them that that's not the case, that every voice matters and that every vote counts, and just reminding them of scale, right? If you go to the poll and you take 5 friends, if you go to the polls and you take 10 friends, and imagine if we scale that up, the impact that we can make. So just reminding people that you have a voice, use it. You have a vote, and you can use that too, and it does matter. And so I think just this level of apathy in that they just feel like it hasn't for so long because of one party rule. And just reminding them that, you know, we're here. We're all here to serve you, and we need to show up because, you know, a government is only of and by the people who participate. So we need more people to participate and get engaged.
Why do you think, you mentioned divisiveness, why do you think it's like that?
Well, my argument is it doesn't have to be, right? That's a choice that people are making based upon the rhetoric that they're using. We can show up and we can be kind and we can be thoughtful and we can be empathetic. We can have constructive dialogue about the policies and the issues that we disagree on. And that's where that tussling should take place, not about the people and the person. So if we can get back to the humane side of politics and just tussle with those issues and walk away as kind, empathetic humans, I think all the better we will be. And that starts at the top and goes up and down the ticket. We all have to be able to model that so people can feel like, okay, that's what we need to see in our government. That's what we need to see in our communities more broadly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned your background. Do you come from a family of Democrats?
I don't.
Yeah.
No. They like to call themselves independents now. So that's been a really interesting part of this process too, you know, coming from a small community where I have quite a few Republicans in my family, and that comes up often as we go across the district, and people ask me, you know, why are you a Democrat? Did you come up from a family of Democrats? What do you say to Republicans who are maybe considering either splitting their ticket or voting for you? And I just say, hi, family. That's a part of who I grew up with and part of my upbringing. And I think that's a prime example of we can have really thoughtful, constructive dialogue, and we can disagree about certain issues. But at the end of the day, we love each other, we support each other. A few of them pulled a Democratic ticket in the primary for the first time in their lives, which I'm really proud of, to have earned their support. But the more we can say, hi, family, and have those conversations regardless of political ideology.
How'd you change?
How did I change?
Well, not how did you change, but how did you become a Democrat when you come from a family of Republicans?
I think you can make the argument that the Republican Party has changed. And so the Republican Party of now versus the Republican Party of yesterday, I would argue that's, quite similar to that moderate Democrat. And so I don't think there's been a big of a leap as maybe we think. But it's also one of those things I feel really fortunate and lucky to my parents who were like, you go see the world. And you interpret the world however you see fit. You're grounded in our values and that foundation, and we support you in going and seeing the world. And you interpret the world and see it through your own eyes, not ours.
Specifically, and I want to hit everything. So is there anything that maybe I'm not asking that you want to add in that our viewers need to know about you?
I think we hit on, everything from the background to the why we're running. And I think those are the most important pieces of who we are and why we're doing this.
Something that we can get into, and I think this maybe would be best for TV purposes. How has the campaign been so far? We're kind of in the home stretch here. So being that you have never done this before, is there anything that maybe was eye-opening to who? I'm sure there's a lot.
Quite a lot.
Yeah. So kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and let us know what that is.
Sure. To be quite candid, you think you know what you're getting into, but you really don't until you're actually in it, and you're experiencing it every day. And for me, I made a commitment to myself and my family and the people that support me that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it everything I have. So I put my career on hold. I put a lot of things on hold because this is deserving of that time and that effort. But with that being said, you don't quite realize that time and effort that it requires, because if you want to do it right and you want to do it well, you're on the road every day, you're spending time in all of these communities, Sunday through Sunday, and you just don't have that downtime. So even though you think you know what that looks like and what that means, it's definitely eye-opening from that perspective. I think one of the most beautiful lessons in this entire experience is that so many people just want what's best for their families and their communities. And just the number of people who've given me hope, and just realizing that there are good people out there working hard and trying to do what's right and do what's good. And it's been a hope-giving experience. It's been a joyful experience. Quite frankly, there are times where it's been maddening because you think it shouldn't be this hard for us to come together and have these conversations. So there have been quite a few lessons learned. I think the greatest lesson is just the beauty and resilience of the people in our communities.
That was Kiley Adolph, Democratic candidate for Indiana's 3rd Congressional District. Remember, you can catch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30, only on Wish TV. I'm Jarrad Bergquist. Thanks for listening.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.